The NCAA tournament is in full swing, and we have another Locked On bracket breakdown as 1 seed Houston comes from behind at halftime to beat 9 seed Auburn 81-64. I'm Isaac Shade, and we are joined now by the host of Locked On Coogs, Parker Ainsworth. And Parker, we're going to get into this comeback, but the big story all week and all weekend has been the injuries to Marcus Sasser, which he re-aggravated, and then Jamal Shed as well. And both these guys not only start, but play 30-plus minutes and each fill out the stat sheet. How important was it for Kelvin Sampson's team to have these guys turn in that kind of performance?
Well, very important. And frankly, it's almost like if they didn't each have 4 fouls, they might have had even more minutes, Isaac. So it sounds like and looks like Marcus is playing at about an 80%, I would say. He did re-aggravate the injury in the first round matchup with Northern Kentucky, and credit them for having a crazy difficult game in the first round. But it also sounds like at halftime they shut him down fairly preemptively. Like I guess theoretically he could have gone, and the medical staff was like, no, let's just see how this plays out. Houston ended up actually having a better second half than the first half in that one too, right? Jamal is the one that looks a little bit more banged up to me as the conscious observer. I've called him like a running back playing basketball all season. He's a downhill kind of guy, and he hasn't had that spurt yet. But man, and like you said, the 30-plus minutes he was on the floor, just having a calm presence out there is so nice sometimes as a point, especially from your point guard.
Well, this was certainly a tale of two halves. Parker, what was the story of the first half that allowed Auburn to build that 41-31 halftime lead?
Yeah, so admittedly, I think Houston looked rattled at times by, the story since the selection committee put these games in place was Auburn gets to play in Birmingham. And I do think that looked like it played some sort of an impact in the first half. Houston looked like, oh, this is a road crowd. Houston's played on the road at Oregon and Virginia, and, they had rough first half in those outings as well. And then admittedly, the depth of Auburn, right? It was a very tightly called game. I don't mean to say that was necessarily one way or the other, although there might have been home cooking feels at times. The depth for them helped out in the first half because they have a bunch of SEC athletes. They go 10 deep. And like Houston is kind of pulling freshmen off the bench. Like, oh, we got to pull so-and-so in there. And then the second half, coach just let them play, even with the foul trouble. He's like, okay, you're going to play with 4 fouls. You're going to play with 4 fouls. And that obviously played a big role. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second, but Trevon Mark went in fuego. So that changed a lot of things.
Well, let's go straight there then. Knowing that both of those high-level teammates are banged up, Trevon Mark pours in 26 points to go with 9 rebounds. How did he step up, and can he repeat this performance to keep Houston trucking right along in this tournament next weekend?
Well, he clearly was feeling it too. At one point, not that Sampson's ever a Princeton offense kind of guy, but he typically has some sort of an action. And very obviously, with like 14 minutes left in the game, it was like, hey, we're going to get the ball to him, and we're just going to go 1-4 low, and we're all going to get out of the way. And he was getting in the mid-range and raising up over guards. They put a bigger guy on him, and he got a very quick and-one jumper because he just kind of like leaned into the guy and got a little bang with the chest. Again, tightly called game. That's how it goes. He was feeling it, and he's had games of over 20 this season. Obviously, none of them are more important than this one. This was, if they don't get his 26, they don't win this basketball game, right? Because it completely shifts the dynamic. At a moment where they pulled Sasser and Shed each with 4 with over 8 minutes to go, it felt like Auburn's going to make a run. We're going to dig ourselves out of it. And instead, Houston actually extended the lead on the back of Trevon Mark. Big second half from him. Honestly, kind of second half that, like, if this thing continues to go as Houston would like the tournament to go, we'll be talking about that one for a long time.
Yes, I mean, it feels like often in the tournament, teams have to win one of these types of games to keep on going. And so, Parker, what does it say to America that has often devalued this team as an AAC conference competitor, that they were able to come down from 10, win by 17, and so have a 27-point turnaround in the second half? What does it say about Kelvin Sampson's team and their grit?
Well, I think it certainly obviously means that they're never out of a game, right? Down 10 in a game that felt like it was on the road at halftime. It would have been easy to fold for a lot of teams. Houston's not that team. Sampson's not that coach. And a lot of the hate, like you're mentioning, comes from being out of this small conference, the AAC. And we don't have to get into how Memphis showed the other night, but I will say that, like, this is an SEC team. Houston took it to them in the state of Alabama. We saw Houston play Virginia in the Sweet 16 in the regular season this year, and they saw them play Arizona in the Sweet 16 last year, and Villanova down to the wire in the Elite Eight last year, right? Houston has shown they can play with these guys in these tournament types of settings before. Obviously, every year is different. Every team is different. But I feel like that is hopefully starting to wash away. And if it's not, well, we're in the Big 12 next year. So we'll wash it away then.
Yes, indeed. And this comeback was very important, as we had already seen 2 number 1 seeds fall in this round, and Houston said, not us too. And because of that, we get to look ahead to a Sweet 16 matchup with the winner of Indiana and Miami. What are you looking for Houston to do this week in the days ahead leading up to that matchup?
Continued health, and making sure guys are getting the rest they need. Obviously, Houston's going to go back home for a couple of days before going up to Kansas City for the regional. And I think from there, the whole push is get off your feet, stay off your knees, etc. And if we can play hard these next two games against whoever, Indiana, Miami, and then you win that one, hope to move on, etc. You're coming home, right? Like that's a big incentive at the end of this. Is well, we talk about Auburn and Birmingham. The Final Four is in our backyard, and so if they can pull that off, obviously that's like a little pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's St. Patrick's Day, right? Pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I will say that Indiana's got a talented kid or two that like can win a game on their own. Miami has their own health stuff that the longer they play, I'm sure the longer, more time you give those guys to get healthy. They're both dangerous teams. It's not like a cakewalk. I don't mean to make it sound like that by any stretch, but Houston's biggest focus has to be getting healthy. Just has to be.
There we go. For more on the Houston Cougars, make sure you subscribe to Locked on Coogs. And for a full view of the bracket and all the college basketball action, subscribe to Locked on College Basketball. Both of these shows are part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.